Thank you for tuning in to the World Builder's Anvil, episode 168. How to frame your world.
Don't know where to start building your fantasy world? Do you need more? Does it make sense? Forget any worries and become a crafter of imagination. This is the place that will help prime your mind. Now, it's time to heat up the forge, break out the mithril ingots and hammer. Welcome to the World Builder's Anvil. I'm your host, Jeffrey W. Ingram. Let's sup from the mug of Java and build.
Welcome back. As always, I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And I am Michael Miller. Why are you laughing already? What are you laughing at?
Because you were getting ready to drink.
I was. You did that on purpose. So this is episode 2 of tonight's session, which I affectionately refer to as the Anvil After Dark, which is when we record on Thursday evenings, because we usually record on Saturday mornings. And we're going to be doing both these days.
Just to give everyone a very scary mental image, we're both in negligees right now. So
you're still wearing yours?
Hey, must be a new episode of the World Builder's Anvil, folks. Welcome aboard. If this is your first episode,
thank you for joining us,
World Builder.
And
if you're still listening, you're in the right place.
If you're still listening, yeah. If you're still listening, yeah. I don't even know. Like, I have ideas. Like, you like to refer to yourself as a world builder, and I think it's a little unfair for me to call myself a world builder. While I have built a couple of worlds, I would say that I am more of an advocate. I am more of a cheerleader, if you will. I am more of a helper and assistant. I am a guide.
You are a consumer of it, so you understand it.
I'm a huge consumer of it. Consumer of it.
You also have your own creative juices and flows. You worked in movies. You've done photography. I found out you sung. In the last episode, I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
The thing is, no, I did not know that.
Yeah, like I sang a lot.
I sang once and I got slapped, but that was not because.
Well, that's because you were serenading me with lots of lewd words, and I don't appreciate it. I am a good girl.
The one who just asked if my negligee was still on, disappointedly.
Well, okay. Only because mine was off, and I figured I didn't want to be alone, you know?
Okay.
Anyway. So, yeah, if you're listening, probably a world builder, or at least interested in it, and we're glad to have you
Or
aboard.
interested. You want to know the behind-the-scenes stuff, maybe? And this is a really behind-the-scenes episode.
This is a very behind-the-scenes episode. And this is also kind of a part 2 to our last one. I realize it's 168, and we didn't call the other 167. We didn't call it part 1, and we're not calling this part 2, but it is a spiritual part 2 to the prior episode, so...
Originally, it was the idea to do this, but the other stuff sort of seemed important just because of problems I see. So if you ever get stuck in world building, go back to 167. Here, we're gonna give some tools what I like to call the 5 contacts tool world.
And let's be fair, if you don't get stuck world building, then you're probably not listening to this show.
Especially
I think we
our
all get
listeners,
stuck a little bit. No, I'm not trying to make a joke there. It's true. It's true. Like, if you're not getting stuck, then you probably are not listening. Everyone gets stuck, though. I think even the really hardcore pros, J.K. Rowling, Stephen King, I'm sure that they have moments where they get stuck.
When you're delivering the story is when you're delivering. When you're sharing, that's, I think, the bigger danger spot to get stuck in, because you want to hit it just right. You want to hit the correct emotional string or add that new nuance in. And that's where world building itself at its core is simple, but it is an art. And the problem is, it's like it's almost scientific, and I want to relate to you today, but realize you're applying sort of a scientific kind of framework to an art. And so the thing is, rip up, reuse, get rid of what you need, but
get rid of what you
need. That really
need?
was bad language, wasn't it? Get rid of what you don't need.
Yeah. I think you want to reword that. Get rid of what you don't need. Yeah. I can't tell you how many times that I have been texting somebody and forgot the one word, like don't or not, which creates the exact opposite meaning of what your intention is. Like, stop, kill that guy. Stop! Don't kill that guy.
Mom, drive off
Those
the
are two
bridge.
very different things.
I mean,
very different things.
I mean, don't.
Mom, don't drive off the bridge.
We had a very good comment, and
you follow
people
me.
hear this will be weeks ago, but one of the people who I interviewed since you've been on the show, I think the only one I've interviewed since you've been on the show, Jesper gave a shout out to us, and he was like, these guys cracked me up and just shared out one of the episodes. I was very appreciative of that.
Oh, Jesper said that about both of us? That's so sweet. Oh, I was really, really disappointed that I did not get to be on that episode because I really wanted to talk to him. And we actually, don't you have another interview?
I have actually a couple planned out at this point. So hopefully there will be some showing up. They'll be showing up as bonus episodes going forward.
And actually, you need to remind me because I have 3 that I need to set up, and I have not done any of the legwork. I was given a great opportunity to set up the legwork for 3 really good interviews, and I have not done it yet. It's been sitting in my email box.
So that's
I need to do
all
that.
For today's episode. No, I'm joking.
No. There's more to do, Jeff. There's more to do.
But getting here, and also if you're fresh and you're like, what is this world building thing? And there is an episode called "What is World Building" at the beginning. This is almost maybe a better place to start, because it kind of gives you an idea of kind of what I like to look at when I'm thinking of a world. And a lot of this is from so many mistakes I have made along my journey, getting stuck so many times where you kind of refine the process. And that's like the IT worker in me, I guess, whereas I like to take what I've done and refine it. And so this is kind of where I'm at now as a world builder. So I think this is going to be a great episode. If you don't like it, just tune to the next one and troll me on the internet. That'll be fine.
And if you can't find them on the internet, go to the Webernets. I'm a big fan.
That's even better.
Webernets.
Yeah, I want to start using that.
Webernets.
The problem is, I find when I use the joke ones like on the internets today or on the Facebooks today, that sometimes I end up doing it too much, and then when I'm not meaning to use it as a joke, it comes out. And you're like, oh, I just said the Facebook. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was on the Facebook earlier.
I like saying it that way because I think it says I was on the Facebook.
That's right.
I was on the Twitter, where all the twits hang out. Right? That's
exactly. That's my
how
point.
that works,
exactly.
Right?
But you just like to deliver your whole life that way, so that's not fair.
Well, the thing that's funny is that I, in real life, like, you know, I get a little over the top on the show, and you know, I'll deliver, you know, my comedy kind of straightforward on the show. But in real life, I tend to deliver dry and straight, especially when I'm in mixed company. And that makes it funnier for me because half the people that I'm saying it to don't get the joke. And then it's a joke just for me and the very few cool people that get it. And one of my the master electrician that I learned my trade through, after working for him for 9 years, he still didn't get it. I could still deliver something straight to him that was totally ridiculous, and he would believe me every time. Like, at this point, I'm a licensed electrician, and he's asking me how I'm going to set something up, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to tie the feed right into the neutral over here, and if you're not an electrician, that would create an explosion. So I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to tie this feed right into this neutral over here, and then once it's done, we'll turn it on at the other breaker. And I'm saying it just like that, like very matter-of-factly, like that's what I'm going to do. And the reason I'm saying it that way is because I've gotten to a point in my trade where he should know that I'm going to do it the right way. And of course, I'm going to do it the right way because the given task he's asking me about is totally simplistic, and even a first-year apprentice would know how to do it the right way. So of course, I screw with him by telling him I'm going to do it the wrong way. And he's like, oh, no. That's going to cause an explosion. You can't do that. And I'm like, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. And I still have a couple of guys that at this point, the place that I work now, I have been there for almost 8 years. And I have a guy that I work with hand in hand all the time. And he's gotten to the point where he generally catches my sarcastic, dry delivery. But I love it when he doesn't. And then I look at him and he's like, oh, you're a jerk. Because then he gets that I'm messing with him.
Too, where if you deliver it correctly, you know, and sometimes I get to very obscure dry humor. So like if you had actually gone to the Facebook.com/groups/Undercroft and read through all of the haikus, it's like, I think the first one, and I think the only real one I put in there close to real one was like 445 or something like that. It was way off, and Michael called me out on it. But for me, it was like just seeing, hey, is people paying attention here? And he was, because he's anal. But and then pi was better, but I should have actually put P, new row, I, new row, E. That would have been funnier. Screwed up the delivery, but hey, I get into really esoteric, strange stuff sometimes, so I'm just a little weird.
Maybe you should do like the first line pi, P-I-E, the second line pi, P-I, and the third line maybe just a symbol for pi. Or no, the third line is just 3.14.
But see, I'm so geeky, I would take it further out than that. Of course,
then it's... Well, then maybe you do that in the second line.
So it's the longer one.
So that's the longer of the three.
I have a strange sense of humor. So welcome to the show. If you're still here,
math.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. So
Thanks
get
for
into framework. There's a reason why I like the word framework. There's really three.
Jeff, how do I frame my world?
There's really three reasons. And the first reason is I have a developer background, so I'm used to looking for and finding frameworks to help me do things more simply.
What does that mean? I have a developer background.
So as an IT person, as a person who developed like things for people to use, so like when you go to the internet, those applications, there's someone who develops them from behind the scenes. And the Webernets, yeah.
The Webernets.
And
okay.
and so it's like you look for frameworks because it helps speed your time of development. It makes things simpler for yourself. So that's one reason. Another reason is, it's like scaffolding. But don't think of it as like this planet with like scaffolding 100% around it. It is scaffolding on a facade of this thing that appears like a planet that you are looking at, or maybe a valley, or maybe a city, or maybe a house. It depends on how big of a world you need. So it's sort of it's the work and the stuff that goes around the world and helps shape it, but you're not really creating a whole world. Once again, if you're trying to, go back to episode 167. And the third reason is because I think of it as you're framing a shot. For photography, for a movie or whatever, you are creating the perspective for someone to interact with your world. And you want to keep that in mind.
What I said in the prior episode, and I feel it bears mentioning again right here, framing the shot, with photography, having experience with that, with film, having experience with that also. I worked on movies. Whatever you see in the frame, a picture in a magazine, a movie that you're watching, the image that you're looking at on the screen, the image you're looking at in the magazine, it's like literally, I'm not exaggerating, it's like 10% of what's actually going on, especially if you're watching a movie. Just above the actor, there's a microphone. That microphone's attached to a stick where a dude is holding it right above their head. There might be more than one if it's a bigger movie. There's a dolly track just outside of your view if the camera has to be moved during the shot. There's 3 people operating the camera, 3 at a minimum. Unless it's a steady cam, then it's 2, or if it's a closed set, then there might be 1. But generally 3 dudes or women. There's sound people. There's prop masters. If you've got stunts going on, there's stunt people. You see a performance going on, and they're doing this impressive, intimate moment. There's like 20 to 30 people standing just outside that frame that you can't see. So when you build your world, there's a lot going on that the reader doesn't see.
Nope, they don't need to see it all. Maybe don't want to, but they should. Okay, now, so what's the point? What's the thing to look for in a good framework to build a world by? 1, speed to production, and that's sort of IT lingo coming out, and I apologize, but it's the idea that you want to get to the point as quickly as you can to share the world with your players, with your readers, with the people who interact with you, who you're sharing with. You want to get it out in front of them in the way you want to, as quickly as you can, to deliver a quality product.
See, I think that's worth repeating. You're saying you're apologizing for the wording, but speed to production, I think, is
awesome. I take it back. Okay,
speed to production. Number 1, speed to production. Number 2,
the second thing is So one of the big dangers is, especially the more evolved the world becomes, the more it gets used, the more likely you are to trip upon yourself. And don't get me wrong, there's probably inconsistencies in all worlds that should occur. There are inconsistencies everywhere in real life. Things don't necessarily need to be logical, but consistency more to the point where I'm driving past you, I lose my hubcap, and then in the next scene I have my hubcap back again, which isn't a huge one, but...
I just want to point out something about inconsistency in reality. It's loaded with contradiction. Mm-hmm. And I'll give it... Seriously. And this is something that you as a person, on a personal level, should accept, and you as a world builder can take advantage of. You have a perspective. There's somebody else in the room that has a completely contradictory perspective, and they're both true. So when you get into a fight with somebody, when you get into conflicts, and they are saying a given thing is a given way, and you are saying a given thing is opposite of the given way you are saying, the irony is that you're both correct, and a lot of conflicts come that way. So not only that, but just in the nature of being in existence, you will come across contradiction left and right. And the big thing that I come across is when I have contradictions with my own thoughts and feelings on a given subject. I will think about a given thing, and I will see logically it should be this, but then I will feel about a given thing, and my feelings on it contradict my thoughts on it. And that's okay. So as a world builder, contradiction's okay, but you can still have consistency, even despite contradiction. The trick is that the contradictions be consistent so that you acknowledge the fact that they're there and you not make a glaring, error that the reader's going to go, yeah, but you just said there's gravity in this plane of existence, and now you're saying there's no gravity in this plane of existence. That's kind of glaring.
And that's what you need for the consistency, right? But like I said, the things within your world, there could be inconsistencies or, things that seem flawed within cultures because people make mistakes. People do things screwed up. And
not only that, but you might be, here's a great example. You might be like talking about part of your world from the perspective of a given culture. Culture A sees a given thing this way. And maybe they're talking about a second culture. They see that second culture this way. Culture B is like, well, no, that's not how things are. Our perspective is this given way. And they both make sense to you, but they're contradictory. So it could be something like that. At some point during the book you're showing, or story or tale or game, you're sharing one perspective and you're sharing another perspective, which creates a contradiction. It's not actually a contradiction. It's just a different perspective.
The other thing I think that's important in a good framework is it allows for future growth in two ways. One, you are fleshing out more and more about what you're talking about. And sometimes because of the story, you end up moving off into a separate section. So you sort of move the scaffolding and create new scaffolding and start filling in behind it. You fill in the details behind it.
I have one other analogy I wanted to throw in there because this just came back to my mind. When it comes to different perspectives and different contradictory beliefs of existence, I am standing in front of Jeff. Jeff is directly in front of me. I am holding a quarter so that I can see the side that is heads and he can see the side that is tails. I have painted my side black. I have painted his side white. And I say, Jeff, what color is the coin? He says it's white because that's what he can see. I say, no, it's not. It's black because that's what I can see. And we keep arguing about why the color is the color that we see when the truth is that it's both. It's the same thing.
One of the big ironies, too, going back to consistency for a second, it happens in world building all the time. That's the reason why you take someone who's 30 to go watch a Batman movie, and you take someone who's 60, they both love Batman, they both go see the Batman movies, and they'll both have two different impressions on how good the depiction of Batman was, because there was a different sort of consistency at one time period over another one. So sometimes just because of growth and changes that have to happen to keep something marketable over time, changes stuff. So the longer it's around and keeps being used, the more likely you're forced to get inconsistencies built into it. People can get past it, but it will create some amazing arguments when you're walking out of certain movies.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be understanding of that a given property, given intellectual fictional properties, they evolve, they change. And they're almost isolated, you know. A lot of people consider the animated series of Batman to be the iconic, the canon of Batman. And
awesome.
I'm a huge fan of that Batman. That's one of my favorites. It's absolutely fantastic. Some of my favorite Batman moments come from the animated versions of Batman. But I wouldn't say that it's the absolute canon. I would say, for me, a lot of the comic books that I've read are the hard canon. And the movies are just, they're fun adventures and sort of caricatures of what
I've
Batman
never
is.
still seen one where I agree with the depiction of Batman, but not completely, not the entire persona. There are certain things that do certain things well.
Do you want to watch the animated Dark Knight Returns?
I've probably seen that. I'm just saying. I'm saying the movie.
It's a two-parter. I have it. This is a movie. I'm telling you. It's a two-parter. Peter Weller plays Batman. It's brilliant. It's awesome. I'll let you borrow it if you want. It's so good. We were talking about, I think.
Well, no, we were talking about what's the point.
No, I'm sorry. We were talking about speed to production and then consistency.
No, actually, we had gone past that into allowing further growth, but then we kind of went back into consistency. So okay. But essentially, the idea is those are the three things I think make a good framework. They help you speed along to production. They help you remain consistent in the ways that's important, which is in the delivery, not in the internals of the world, and allows for future growth. So essentially, like, you decide to do another story where you sort of take a character from where you started, like your first story in, and he goes out to a new country. You will have, like I said, you have to create the scaffolding out there and start fleshing that out. And we'll kind of go into more of this now that we're getting into what I call the 5 contacts to a world. There are 5 contacts I think you can use to get to a world that allows you to start delivering a story.
You're saying
like
contacts?
Mm-hmm.
Contacts. 5 contacts.
And trust me, that sounds really simple, but these could take a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. But the thing is, I've kind of broke it down into 5 areas where the 5th contact, and I'll start there because I'll cheat, is really, that's when you're writing your novel. That's when you're delivering your game. That is when you are drawing the art off of your work, and then maybe you're fleshing out the world on the side. I don't know if artists develop worlds or if they strictly do it visual. I don't know. Artists could let me know. But that's when, and you're fleshing out your world at that point. But that's really what you're doing there. That's you're nailing the book. You're adding more detail. If you're like me and you're a hobbyist, you know, and you have other points of your life, you're probably adding details that aren't needed in. But this is for really getting your stuff out there to share. So the first contact, you're doing your overview. You're determining your frame, the reference you want to share the world with. You're determining the reusability. Like for me, I have Garduel. Garduel will have lots and lots of stories told from it. And there have been lots and lots of stories over the ages that have been told from it.
There's been a lot.
The idea is, so for me, I need to keep it flexible enough. So I need an entire world, actually. It's not all, like, you go to certain parts of my world and there's a lot of detail. You go to other parts and there's nothing but map.
Do you know what I'm looking forward? Mm-hmm. Do you know what I'm looking forward to? Honestly, I can't wait for the all goblin.
And I could do that in Garduel, yeah, because goblins are cool.
From Garduel,
yeah.
I know you can. I want a detailed. It doesn't even have to be a whole book, but I want you to put a book that really gets into your goblins, because your goblins are interesting.
You know, it's especially when you start reading my stuff. Is I like to play with the tropes that we know of: orcs, elves, halflings. My core races are what you would expect, but I redo them. I do them in my own way, and something I very much enjoy.
You haven't seen goblins like this, trust me.
Or my orcs are much cooler than any other orcs, I have to say. I am an orc today, unless you offer me dragon.
I am an orc today.
No,
I'm an elf today.
An elf. My mom went with elf. I was very disappointed. Goody two shoes.
I feel like you need to, you know what? The one problem I have with that question is it's binary. Like, I really want you to offer a couple more. I feel like, no, here's my problem with it. I have a big problem with binary control. Because the real world doesn't work that way. That is a man-instituted
so that's the point of the question.
perspective.
But if you would ever have gone through the interview process, you'd realize I've told everyone who I've done the interview with, don't feel bound by that answer however you want.
I don't think I've ever quite caught you saying that.
I don't say that on air. That's part of the prep for the interview. So like Jesper said dragon.
You tell them that beforehand.
And I went giddy because I
did say
love
dragon.
dragons.
Yeah.
So I could get that response. But no, all of them I tell, feel free if something else hits your brain, just go with what you feel.
Fair enough. Jesper is very dragon.
Now and within the first contact, getting back to the first contact, once we determine reusability, so like if you're doing a one-shot, one-off story for people and you're scraping together sort of what you think is kind of a cool idea, you don't need a lot of framework around it.
I want to restate that word because you glossed through it so quickly. Reusability. So, of first contact, there's three things. There's determine your frame, determine your reuse. Well, it says determine reusability, and then.
And this is something I think we did a whole episode on mission statements. I love mission statements. I love having something that is a few sentences just describing what I want to do with this. And for the purpose of this is what do I want the world to be like? Now, in the next frame, we're going to expand on that a little bit more, but this is what do I want out of the world? What am I trying to get to out of the world? So that is sort of an overall mission statement for the world, but it helps keep you in mind of the frame you're working with. And if you're ever going to use it again, it sort of binds that stuff together and adds a little bit more so you kind of know where you want to go with the world. Do you want something that is Hellraiser, or do you want something that is Looney Tunes? That's sort of the mission of the world to figure that out. Like Discworld.
Both, duh, and animated Hellraiser.
Is not the same mission as Westeros, just not. And but both people who built those worlds had an intention with what they were planning to use their world for, and both did wonderful jobs. Now, the second contact. This is what I like to call the basics. And if you've heard me in other episodes talk about the basics, that's where I start getting into the basics of the world. So I'm creating the places, the rules, the faces, the races, the cultures, and the technology. Not all of them, but the ones that I need for the frame. Ones that I need for where I'm going right now. And the thing is, I have a lot more like cultures than I have fleshed out cultures. Sometimes it's just a word. Because they're so far out of the scope of where I'm working in my world that I know that there's this culture here and this is their name. Now, I also say adding a little bit of detail to them if you know a little bit, just like the inspiration for them or whatever, but don't force detail. Okay, so now after you come up with this idea of these places, these rules, and this is really like descriptor type of name development here. This is not detail. You will want to go in and add just a little bit of detail so you don't forget. If you're like me and you have notebooks, you probably have stuff scribbled down. Add what you know, but don't force more in there. Don't try and flesh out a culture just sitting down and going, okay, this is what the culture will dress like. This is what they're going. Developing a culture for me is something that you can expand upon as you're using them. So put down what you know. And if there are any inspirations, I like to track those too, like the things that inspire me to make this culture. But don't, like, at this point, try and force it down, because once again, you're going to have a lot more cultures, probably races that might not even be involved, people who might or might not be involved in the story. Technology. When I say technology, I'm talking about like, where's the technology of the planet currently at in context to Earth. I like to use my GURPS term of tech level. Are they Iron Age? Are they Bronze Age? Are they Middle Age? However you want to break that down, just to get a basic idea. You don't need all the weapons. You don't need all that stuff. You're just trying to get a raw idea of what your world has in it. And it might be a little bit more than what you're going to need, but just kind of let that out of your system. Get it out of there. And once you do that, create what I like to call the frame outline. And the reason I don't call it a story outline here is you might not be delivering like a novel type of story. And I have an episode about story outline, but that's like a long form written outline story. But you could use something very similar, if you're doing a game where you kind of have your scenes planned out and characters and important artifacts within there. This is where you come up with that story outline, or as what I'm calling it here, the frame outline for where you're going. And so now once you have the overview done and you have the basics done, your first two contacts, you're on to your third contact, which is you start looking at your world through just the frame. What do you see? And essentially, there will be certain cultures on the map that you need. You're going to need a map at this point if you don't have one, and it could just be a hand-drawn map on a napkin. It doesn't need to be a fancy map. It needs something so you can have frame of reference.
Or if you want to go back 2 episodes, Jeff's got some great resources for you.
I do have some great resources on maps.
You can make full-blown worlds with world programming software that Jeff recommends.
It's some great stuff. And if you don't even like geography, there is one that will actually just create the whole world for you with weather and everything. But you do need a map, at least of the area you're in. Now, I do say if you're planning to reuse the world, take the time to sketch out what it looks like overall. I throw in mountains, and that's it. And then away from the area I'm working at, there's very little detail, because the problem is it's hard to get stuff on top of mountains. Once you've placed the stuff there, it becomes more complicated. But have an idea of where the mountains are, i.e. where are the plates colliding on the world, and then start getting some more detail in where are those cities, or how's that county you're in broken down. Whatever scope you're working in, map that part out. If you plan to reuse the world, you need to know the geography beyond it. So draw out the geography you might need. And I say if you're unsure and you're planning to reuse the world, at that point, just draw out a whole world on a piece of paper, or do it in MS Paint, some way that will allow you to reuse that same information again of the point you've used before, and you don't lose that consistency. And then once you're looking through your frame at your map, you're going to start to identify what are the cultures I need for the story. It might only be one. What are the religions of that culture, your languages, the states, the people? That's when I start to flesh out that. Okay, and now once we've sort of looked through that frame and we've fleshed out the things behind the frame, we go on to what I call the fourth contact, and that is the foundations. And this is really the fleshing out portion. So you've identified your needs in the third thing, but now you're developing your culture. You're doing a little research on those things that inspired you, or you're looking for some additional inspiration. That might be all the research you do. You're coming up with the rituals needed through your frame. If the religion is not addressed at all in your frame outline, your story outline, you can skip it. Languages, I love the detail of languages. You don't really need them for fiction. You don't. And if you don't like them, drop them. Or if you don't like the phonic side of the languages, just create a naming language so you're consistent in the way you name things. But once a language is not needed, a religion is needed if it's important to the story. If the culture is obsessed with religion, you're going to need the characters to at least know enough about what they should be obsessed with. Okay, so now off to the fourth contact. So at this point, we have an overview of your world. We have the basics down, what we want to get to, maybe even beyond the scope of the frame. We have a story outline or a frame outline, depending on what you're doing. We have a map of at least the area you're going to work in, probably a little bit bigger, or maybe the whole world. It depends on if you want to reuse it or not. We've identified the needs we need, the cultures, the religions, the language, the states, the people, that kind of stuff. And so as we take that stuff, we then go into the fourth contact, which is the foundations. And the foundations, I believe, is you need to add 3 points of reference to everything that you need. Those needs you identified, the third contact, you're going to need to create at least 3 points of references for them. Sort of, once again, not quite a mission statement for them, but just some things to help keep your teeth attached to it. So when you go back to it later, you have a feeling for what that was when you wrote that strange word down that isn't really spelled like anything on earth because you just made it up. So just 3 points of references to keep your mind clear of what that means. Because I have done that where I've gone back after creating something and I go back and I look at this like strange name. I'm like, what the heck is that? And now it's broken down as like a new culture or a new race that I have no idea, and I completely lost it. So you want at least 3 points of references when you do this, and then once again, and I'm going to keep going back to this, you use your frame to focus that, so those ones that we've identified as needs, let's go in there and let's start to flesh those out. That's where we start coming up with the government types if you need it, the things that you need to actually deliver the story or deliver the world you want to when you share it. It's just what you need, not everything. You won't have a full culture scoped out here. If you're doing a language, you'll probably have one of those up front. If there's a religion you had to develop, you'll have at least a partial religion developed. If there's certain types of technology that you're going to use and talk and get into, you need those. Your characters, the ones that are going to be in the story, you're going to develop other characters as you go. But the ones you're going to be in the story, you need to flesh them out. Sort of flesh out only the things that you need past the foundation. So the foundations, you want to remember what all of those words mean when you create the basics. But when you get into the framing the focus, you're starting to flesh out those things up to where you need to start telling your story, to start sharing your world in the way you want to. And that's key because the thing is you can flesh out a lot more, but better ideas are going to hit your brain as you're writing sometimes. Sometimes you get it while you're world building. Sometimes you get it while you're storytelling. So if you get up to just what you need to get going, maybe a little bit further past it, you're going to start fleshing it out as you're delivering the story. You take that information and you just keep putting it back into your world, and you just keep building your world up as you're sharing it. I think that's key. Now, sometimes like if you're creating a computer game where you have a whole world that gets shipped out when it goes live, you need everything that's there up front. But if you're delivering the story interactively or through a novel or a story, you can get to more world building as you're writing. And if you get stuck in writing because you don't have the world building, take a break from the project, the overall project, and go back and flesh out what you need to. But don't try and get everything you need done at once because one, you have some brilliant ideas that hit you, but you're going to feel locked down to it. And you'll be unsure if you've used it once you've added it to your world. So, try and go with the flow of the story, the flow of the way you're sharing it, if you can, up to the point you can, and deliver that as you're in the fifth contact, which once again, the fifth contact is delivering, and once again, if you're doing a novel, you're doing a story, you're doing tabletop gaming or any kind of interactive stuff where you're adding in new elements, you can be fleshing out your world as you're sharing. People will enjoy it. You'll have fun. That's the fifth contact is the most important. It's the fifth level of Shaolin, we'll say. Or the 69th chamber would probably be the bigger point.
36th
I like to add chambers because I'm a world builder. So I didn't say I'm a fiction, writer. I lie. It was just I'm a world builder. I've added in so many more chambers. I don't.
I've got chambers all over. There's chambers everywhere. I've got
and I don't know where you
chamber, go. 2 rooms to the left, extra chamber. I don't even need that
that's
chamber.
That's just where they go to the bathroom at. But that's still a chamber.
Yeah. It's not even a bathroom. It's just a room. I call it the bathroom chamber. I have somebody clean it. It's not.
It's dangerous. That's where the adventure starts.
It's a bad job to clean up the bathroom. Yeah, it's the bathroom chamber. It's not a bathroom. It's kind of like just a room.
Yeah.
It's not good. Not good.
All right. So, I mean, but really, that's it for framework building. And if you need more help and you want it fleshed out a little bit more, if you go to gardul.com.
And also, you can totally get a hold of Jeff and I. We are very accessible if you join the Facebook group.
We're hams. We need it.
Yeah, seriously. Like, I love our group. And the irony is this is our first in the moment shout out. Somebody just joined the group, and I approved their joining the group while we were recording. This is a first. It has not happened before. So, James Koberger, welcome to the World Building Undercroft.
Of course, you're going to hear this a couple weeks after you did that, but it's in the moment for us.
It will. But it literally, for me, you just joined. It is Thursday evening, and I just caught your request. I accepted your request, and I'm looking at your profile. James, welcome to the group. Get in on the haikus.
Oh, jeez. Don't scare the guy off.
Hey, look, we only got a part week out of this. It's Thursday, and Charles and I went crazy on this. And we only have until I'm gonna say this episode drops, and this is gonna drop late Sunday, right?
It's gonna be Sunday in April. This is the first week of April.
Oh, this isn't. Oh, we're ahead. All right, now I feel bad. All this talk we've been doing about this, and it just occurred to me. It's actually old talk.
Real time announcement.
Well, then I will throw out the thank you to everyone, because they would have been giving me lots of Star Wars haikus at this point, because we should have been doing Star Wars haikus. But remember, this is what we talked about in
episode 167 about perspective. Michael was absolutely being honest from his perspective.
It's true, even though it's not really accurate to other people's perspectives.
That's just one of those consistency flaws we will warn you against. Don't do those. But we're ignore us.
All right. So what is the world builder's task of the day?
Find the 5 contexts of your world. Where are you at? And sort of make sure there's a framework so you can get back. You can consistently cover the same topics and go, yes, I need that. No, I don't need that. But build up your own framework, or go to gardul.com.
Are you going to put those 5 contacts as a list available as show notes?
Yeah, that'll be part of the show notes.
All right, so real world task of the day is learn to transition before starting task. And I think Jeff might need to have clarification on that one.
So the idea is like when you switch from task to task. So let's say you work all day and you want to come home and you want to do some world building or writing or whatever. Take a moment, think to yourself, okay, that's done. I'm going to world build. What am I going to world build about? Start getting yourself into the moment before you start doing it, or else you'll be scattered. It helps me stay focused a lot when I can take a moment and think about what I'm going to do before I start. It really helps me focus in on what I'm going to do, and I can get a lot more done in the time if I focus before I start. And this could be even simple, like you come home and you have a family like I do. Take a moment to realize that you've left work, you've got home, and you're about to go into your family, and just kind of like, hey, I'm home with my family. I want to go in, and for me, it's I want to be happy, and that's just hit yourself with a quick thought where you want to go, and just go that way.
Thank you so much for listening to the World Builders Anvil. We would love it if you would share the World Builders Anvil with 2 of your friends, and so would they. If they are unfamiliar with podcasts, then you get to introduce them to the wonderful world of podcasting by showing them Stitcher or iTunes, or, best of all, just send them to our website, www.gardul.com. That's GARDUL.com.
Now strike while the mithril's hot.